Welcome back everybody, and what we're going to be talking about today is kit for the jungle.
The Pathfinders are one of the most elite units in the British Army outside the SAS. Officially, they don't exist. They're a phantom platoon.
Right then, so I've got a fair bit of experience of working in the jungle. I'm a jungle warfare instructor, which I did in 1997 in Brunei. So I've worked in the jungles of Brunei itself, Belize, the Philippines, and also in Kenya. Working in the jungle is quite a hard thing to do. It's a fairly hostile environment. There's certain aspects of that will have an effect on how you operate, how you prepare your kit, what sort of kit you use, okay? So the first thing to think about when you're working in the jungle is the heat and the humidity. So it's going to be very hot, obviously, okay? So most jungles in the world are going to be pretty damn hot. Because of that, you're going to lose a lot of your fluids. You're going to be sweating constantly, profusely, which means you've got to keep the water intake coming all the time. Twin with that is the humidity, because generally it's raining all the time, you're surrounded by green stuff, and it's humid all the time, which again makes you sweat like mad, okay? So yeah, you've got to keep your water intake coming all the time. The terrain then, so the terrain's going to be very difficult. You've obviously got shed loads of foliage that's trying to grab you. There's thorny stuff, there's vines and all that. As you're trying to move through the jungle, that terrain is basically making things hard for you. Twin with that is quite often you're up and down hills quite a lot. Because of the fact that there's streams everywhere, it then cuts little mini valleys and stuff through the terrain, and you're going up and down hills quite a bit. So the terrain itself is quite difficult. Then you've got the animal wildlife to think about. So most people think when you go into the jungle, you're going to be encountering tigers and crocodiles and stuff like that's going to eat you. Not so much, okay? So in all the jungles I've been in, I've seen big cat tracks, but I've never actually encountered a big cat. However, things like your bugs, your hornets, snakes and spiders, you will come across those. And it's mainly the bugs that are going to make your life hard. So the mozzies, the little bugs, centipedes, things like that can give you nasty stings, okay? So that's going to have an effect on how you operate and how you've got to look after your body when you're working in the jungle. Next thing to think about is the water. So I've already mentioned there's loads of streams going everywhere because it's raining all the time. It's called a rainforest for a reason. So you've got rain coming down on top of you. You're going through streams and rivers quite often because they're every couple of 100 metres. So there's rain coming down from on top, there's rain from underneath, and there's water from within because you're sweating constantly all the time. So this is going to have an effect on, again, how you prepare your kit and what kit you carry. So generally, it's a fairly hostile environment to work in. And what I'll be doing is I'll be talking through some of those bits of kit that make your life a little bit easier and those essentials that you're definitely going to need when you're working in a jungle environment. What I've done then is I've broken down the kit and equipment into 6 categories, okay? First one's going to be clothing, so the sort of stuff you're going to be wearing, including your headwear and your footwear. The next thing is kit carriage, so how you're going to carry all your equipment, because that's going to have, it's going to be quite specific how you're going to do that as well. Third one's going to be water, because that's one of your biggest considerations, given what I've just spoken about with the heat and humidity. Next one is medical and care, so general care of your body, which is a massive consideration. Next one is shelter, and the last one will be your sort of general tools. So that's the 6 different ways that I'm going to break this down. So first thing I was going to talk about is clothing then. And the clothing you're going to wear is specific to the environment. And most people think, well, it's going to be hot, so I'm going to wear my shorts and my t-shirt because that's the coolest thing to wear, isn't it? Well, that'd be wrong. And I'll explain why as I'm going through. Head to toe then, first thing you're going to be wanting to wear is a jungle hat. It's called a jungle hat for a reason, isn't it? Because it's designed for the jungle. It's not just one of those things that's designed to look cool. Okay, so it's got a relatively wide brim on it, and one thing that a lot of squaddies do, a lot of soldiers do, is they cut down the brim a little bit too much to try and make it look cool. Now the reason why this brim's on there, firstly it's to stop the rain and stuff going in your face all the time when it's constantly raining, but secondly, as you're moving through the brush, when you're bouncing off trees and branches and stuff and all the foliage, any of that stuff that's falling off, which could include some quite nasty bugs that could bite you, could potentially fall down the back of your neck of your shirt, okay? So keep a fairly decent wide brim on your jungle hat. This one here is from Plat Attack. It's got a sensible size brim. It's not too massive so it looks stupid like some of the British Army issue ones, but it's not too small either. It's a good kind of balance. Okay, you want to have your jungle hat with a neck cord on it, okay? And the way that I always wore mine when I was serving was you tuck the cord behind your ears and then around the front. That way, if it's pushed off the front of your head, it's caught by your ears. If it's pushed off the back of your head, it's caught by your chin. Now, a lot of the soldiers nowadays take that cord off one side and tie it to a loophole on the shirt, but it's up to you. You need to have a way of basically stopping it from getting ripped off your head when you're moving through the jungle. Next thing down then is this sweat rag. If you noticed, I haven't got this tucked in like a scarf because personally I hate that. Some of the guys used to do that, but it basically traps all the heat, doesn't it, like a scarf would do. But it's good to have a sweat rag of some sort accessible, or maybe just tied loosely around your neck like this so you can literally just keep dabbing your face, because you are going to be continuously peeing sweat off your face. So your top half then, what you want to be wearing is a long sleeve shirt, not a short sleeve shirt. Okay, you see that there? I've got my sleeves rolled all the way down and done up. Now there's a good reason for that. As you're moving through the foliage, through the jungle, there's loads of nasty stuff that wants to grab your arms, cut you, the thorns, you know, all that sort of stuff. And if you do get cuts, which you will do, but you want to try and cut down on it, if you do get cuts and grazes, you need to tend to that because it can get infected really, really easy. And I'll go through that more as I'm talking through the rest of the kit. On your shirt then, what you do want to have is a pocket so you can get to your compass really easy, really accessible like so. Reason being is you're going to be, you know, navigating the jungle is really difficult, and you're going to be getting to your compass constantly because you need to break your legs down of your navigation really short, so at the very most just a couple of 100 meters, because it's such a complex terrain to work in. You've noticed on my hands I've got a pair of gloves. Reason being again is to protect your hands, so as you're moving through the jungle you don't actually get your hands shredded by all that foliage and thorns and all that sort of stuff. So what you want is something that's going to protect your palms, some hardware material, but on the top side you want to have like a lightweight material. These are quite breathable. These are mechanics gloves, but they're the sort of lightweight version, so they're great for this sort of thing. Moving down my body then, I've got a pair of trousers, long-legged trousers, not shorts. Plenty of good pockets and stuff as per usual. And one thing to note then is at the bottom of the trouser leg, what you want to have is either some way of actually cinching it against your boots or actually tucking it into your boots. Reason being, as you're going through streams and rivers, leeches can ingress in through your trousers into your boots and then start sucking the blood out your ankles and your feet, okay? So it's important to have some sort of tightened bottom half of your trousers there, if not sort of tuck it into your boots. Talking about the boots themselves then, these are Altberg jungle boots. They've got material sides on here, but the bottom half is leather, so they're kind of loosely based on the American jungle boots, the classics from Vietnam, but a lot better. They've got a Vibram sole on them. One thing to note though, on the instep here then, what you've got here are these drainage holes. So the water will get into your boots no matter what. There's no point in wearing Gore-Tex boots and thinking you have dry feet in the jungle. It's not going to happen. So what these do is they allow the water to get in, but they allow the water to escape quickly as well. And then, you know, your feet are going to dry out a little bit better rather than holding the water into your boots. So that's the clothing from head to toe there. Kit carriage then. So a rucksack that you want to be using for the jungle, a really good idea to get is something with an external frame like this, because what this does is it keeps the Bergen slightly off your back and it creates a little bit of an air gap, so a bit of air flow in between your body and the rucksack. The reason why that's good is because you're constantly sweating and you may not have the chance to wash very often, you'll get a thing called prickly heat, okay, which I've had prickly heat and it's not very nice. If you've got something like this though to create a bit of an airflow between your back and the Bergen, it's great. An awesome bit of kit for the jungle. The one that was designed before this one, the predecessor to this, was called the Jungle Bergen, and they've basically modified this slightly with mesh side pouches in. I've done a review, so I'll put a link to that here. But this is great because what it does is it allows you to actually organise your kit so you can get to stuff like your water bottles, your basher, your shelter and stuff without having to go into the main part of the Bergen. So this kind of rucksack is great, and it's not too wide. The PLC issue Bergens with the big side pouches on. What they do is they catch on all the foliage and branches and stuff as you're moving through the jungle. Because this isn't too wide, then it allows you to move through the jungle with kind of minimising that risk of catching on things constantly as you're moving through. And it's also not too high, so it's made the Bergen kind of wide this way, but not out the way and not too high. So that's the sort of thing you want to be using. So it doesn't have to be a military one, but that's the kind of thing that works really well. Okay, also with the kit carriage then, what you definitely want to be having is dry liners. Okay, so there's a big one for the main rucksack. Then you've got, you know, various other different smaller ones. You've got your little waterproof bags for your different stuff. Now, I mentioned about the rain, constantly raining in the jungle. It's called a rainforest for a reason. You're moving through rivers and streams and stuff. So you need to make sure your kit is 100% waterproof within your rucksack, within, say, if you're carrying any kind of belt kit, within your pockets. If it's not, it will get wet, okay? 100% will get wet if you don't waterproof it. So things like dry bags are really, really important. In conjunction with that then, your map. Really important to be navigating all the time in the jungle. It's so easy to get lost because it's a complex terrain, as I mentioned before. So this sort of thing, and I've shown these on my videos loads of times, this is an Ortlieb map case, 100% waterproof. It's got the fold over top there. So if you've got that in your map pocket within your trousers, which is where you want to be keeping it, or your shirt, it's going to get wet, isn't it? Because you're going to be sweating constantly, so the water's going to be coming through your clothing. Also, if you're moving through the rivers and streams, that's going to get wet. But if it's in a case like this, it's going to protect it. The other thing you can do with it is attach a lanyard, clip it to your clothing to make sure that it's never going to get lost, because obviously that is a survival bit of kit. Next thing I'll be talking about then is water, okay? So main thing we're going to be talking about firstly is water carriage, and second one is water purification, okay? So looking at the kit then, you've got your various different water bottles and stuff. So army issue water bottles are great, nice and sturdy. Nalgene bottles and stuff are great, but some of them can be a little bit, prone to breakage and things. You want something nice and sturdy. This is an American 2-quart canteen, so I've had this for a few years now, and it's great because it carries quite a bit of water. Another thing that's really good is a camelback, okay? And what you want is a camelback in its own carrier rather than one that's just a standalone. So this has got like a little backpack strap thing on it as well, so you can literally throw that on your back at any time, and you've got a couple of litres of water. I think there's 3 litres in this one at any one time. Obviously it doesn't need, these are military items here, this is stuff I use in my service. You can get civilian versions of it too. So that's your water carriage, and it's really important to be carrying as much water as you possibly can, because you're going to be drinking constantly due to the heat and the humidity. As I said at the start, water's a massive consideration, and you've got to continually be taking that water on board. So then we're going across to the water purification. What I've got here is water purification tablets. I've got a whole load of the army issue water purification tablets in there, with just a bit of cotton wool in there, just to, if there is any moisture, just to take that moisture away from the tablets. And that's in a waterproof container. That's one of the old 35mm camera film cases there. This is a Millbank bag, so that's an old school type of water filtration. You basically soak it first, put the water in, let it drain out, hang it up, let it drain out into your water container, and that will filter out all the sort of major particles and muck from the water. Then I've got an actual water filter here, so a more modern version that's going to filter out most of the impurities, pretty much all of them. And this is a Sawyer mini filter. I've done a review on this. I'll put a link in it in this video too. And that's a great bit of kit. You know, there's a lot of waterborne diseases out there in the jungle, and you really can't get away from having to drink out of the jungle, out of the streams and stuff, because of the amount of water that you're going to have to take on board, unless you've got a massive supply container nearby. So that's water covered there. Next up then is medical and care of your body. So because the jungle is quite a hostile environment in regards to things like disease and stuff, then it's really, really important that you take care of your body and yourself as you're moving through the jungle and operating in that environment. Now, a lot of people don't realise this, but your average, your main casualties in a tropical environment, when you're fighting an enemy in jungle warfare, won't come from the enemy. They generally come from the environment. So you've got things like deadfall and stuff, but also one of the biggest killers and one of the biggest kind of things that will knock people out of the fight will be disease, okay? So you've got malaria, you've got beriberi, you've got all sorts of horrible things like leishmaniasis. When I went to Belize in '97, about a third of the guys come back with leishmaniasis, which was a waterborne disease that basically eats the skin. It comes up in like a rash, a red rash, and then it starts eating the skin. And if it's left untreated, it can kill you. So there's loads of other diseases out there. And apart from that, you know, just looking after your body, things like looking after your feet, making sure any rashes, any cuts are treated are really, really important, because there is a lot of things out there, like I say, thorns and stuff, that will, you know, cut you as you're moving through the jungle. And if you don't, when you get the opportunity, take that opportunity to clean them and dress them, then that can become a really big deal, it can become infected, and it can kind of take you out of the picture. So what I'll do is I'll just go through a couple of things that I carry to look after myself in terms of care and medical. So this is a medical kit. I've already been through this in one of my previous videos. Again, I'll put a link to that. And what I'll do is I'm not going to go through the entire kit, but what I will talk about are things that's relevant to stuff in a jungle environment, okay? So first one here then is some antiseptic cream. So if you do get any cuts, grazes and stuff, clean them off, and if they need some antiseptic cream on there, whack it on. Also, if I've got some bite and sting relief, so that's a gel there, again from Savlon. So you will get bitten constantly by mozzies and all sorts of other creatures. So get that on there, and that will help relieve the sting a little bit. Next thing I've got here then is a pair of tweezers. Now, why have I got a set of tweezers in here? These are great for getting thorns out of your body. Also ticks. You do get ticks quite a bit in the jungle. So the way to remove them is pinch the tick, turn it before pulling it out, because if you pull them straight out, then it leaves the head in and that gets infected. I've actually got a proper tick removing tool there, and it works the same way. You basically hook that underneath the tick, turn it, and then pull it out. So that's more of a specific one that you can use for both that and for your splinters, your thorns and stuff like that. I've got the other stuff in here that I mentioned previously, but one I will mention is things like Imodium and Diorolite. Now that's really important because you probably will end up getting the shits in the jungle, so it's important to try and combat that if you can. And then what I've got here is all the sort of normal dressings and plasters and stuff which you will definitely be using. Like I say, the opportunity to get cut and, you know, the rest of it, grazed and stuff in the jungle was massive. One really important thing though is looking after your feet, and I've got a whole load of Compeed dressings there for blisters and some tape there for taping up your blisters as well. Okay, so that's the more sort of specific stuff for looking after yourself in the jungle from the med kit. All the rest of it is your normal kit that I've covered in a previous video. What I've got here is some Sudocrem. Okay, now that might sound a bit strange to some people, but sweat rash is massive. Okay, so you will be sweating constantly, as I keep mentioning, and if you're kind of walking a lot through the jungle, you're going to get sweat rash in between your legs and possibly up in your armpits too. So when you get a chance to kind of dry off a little bit, get this stuff on, and it will kind of reduce the effect of that. You can't totally take it out, but it will help reduce the effect of it and make that condition a little bit less worse. Tiger balm, so this is stuff that I picked up when I was overseas. This is great for bites and stuff. The only thing is, if you are in a tactical environment, then it stinks. But if you're not, it's great for, you know, calming down the effects of things like rashes, bites and things like that. That's really good kit. Last thing I've got over here then is just your normal foot powder, okay? So obviously kept in a container to stop it from spreading in amongst your pack. Really important though to look after your feet. As I mentioned with the blisters, make sure your feet are kept as dry as they possibly can be when you get the chance to relax in the evening and get into your basher. Look after your feet, change your socks and powder your feet to get them as dry as possible. So that's the medical sort of and care stuff covered there. Okay, next thing I'm going to talk about is shelter then. So shelter is really important in the jungle. As I keep mentioning, it hammers down with rain constantly most of the time in the jungle, okay? If you haven't got somewhere to shelter from the jungle, then you're going to deteriorate really quickly, and you can get hypothermia, funny enough, in places like the jungle, okay? So it's really important to prioritise how you're going to actually protect yourself from the elements. And what I'm going to do is I'll talk through some of the stuff that I've used and some things that I'd recommend for use in the jungle. Okay then, going from your left here then. So What I've got is, this is my basher. Doesn't matter what make the basher is. This is a war bonnet outdoors one. But what you want to do is make sure it's a decent one, it's in good order, and personally what I do with mine is I put on what's called jungle knots. Okay, so these are attached to the basher. These are from a company called TRC Outdoors. You see that there. And all it is basically is a whole load of paracord that's got knots all the way down the line. And you basically, I'll show you how to use this on a separate video. I'm going to do a review on these. But what you do is you use the vegetation, the springiness of the vegetation, to actually get tension on the basher. And these are held nicely and neatly in place with these little mesh pockets here. So as soon as you've taken your shelter down, all you do is you stuff it away in here, and it stops all the cords from getting knotted and stuff within the container. You can just kind of stuff it away there. So that's the basher itself then. Really important thing to do in the jungle is to get off the floor, okay? And what we've got here is a hammock. This is a Hennessy hammock. This is probably the best make that's out there for use in the jungle, at least. This type has got a built-in mosquito net. And basically getting off the floor is a really advisable thing to do if you're in the jungle, if you possibly can, okay? Sometimes when you're working in the military you don't have the option, sometimes you do. But what it does is it gets you away from all the nasty little bugs and stuff that are creeping around on the forest floor, especially at night time, and especially things like snakes and spiders. So it's important, if you can, to get a decent hammock, something that's not going to fall apart on you. And if you are working in the jungle, as you can see there, get one with the mozzie net built into it, because that will stop all the bugs from attacking you as you're lying there trying to get your melon down. Okay, as part of the shelter there, what we've got is two kinds of basically blankets. This one here is the British Army jungle sleeping bag. This one here is a poncho liner. It's a commercial one, so it's not the issue one, but it's a commercial poncho liner. And all they are is basically big blankets. This one's got a zip round it, this one hasn't. Generally in the jungle, the temperatures at night are fairly warm still, so you don't need a full-on sleeping bag. However, if you are travelling to the jungle, check the region, check the area, because some regions do actually still get quite cold. For example, when I was working in Kenya, in Kathandini, it was bloody freezing at night because we're on the sides of a mountain. When we was in Brunei and Belize, it was actually red hot at night, so you didn't need much in the way of a blanket. I actually slept without one of these in Brunei, so at the particular time we didn't need them. So that's your covered there, and your shelter. Okay then, so final section I'll be talking about is tools. So these are your basic tools that are specific to working in the jungle. Again, I'm not going to cover everything that you carry, but a few specific items that are really important for use in the jungle. Okay then, so looking down here then, going from left to right, you've got a few sort of blades. This first one here then, this is the MOD survival knife. A few of you have actually bought these from my site, and this isn't a selling thing, this is, you know, the sort of thing that is handy to carry in the jungle, some sort of survival knife. This particular one is actually really hefty, and it's good for use for chopping. It's nearly as good as using a machete, to be fair. It's pretty good for that. You can do some quite small sort of intricate work with it, not quite as good as some of the smaller knives, but it's a good all-rounder knife. Next one here then is your classic MOD machete. In the jungle, it's really important to carry a machete of some sort, okay? It's classed as a survival tool in the British Army, because basically if you've got this on you at all times, and it is carried on you at all times separate from your kit, then you've got some sort of defence against something like a snake or some sort of creature, some sort of offensive creature. And also it's used for building your shelters, hacking your way through the jungle if you need to, that sort of thing. And you can see there, this is my logoed up version that's available from my website too. Again, I'm not trying to sell these are the specific tools that are used in the jungle, okay? This sheath that I've got here then, so I've got this made up probably 25 years ago now, I've still got it. This is what I carry my machete in, and that basically goes around my waist, and that's carried on my body at all times when I'm operating in the jungle. So that's why that's not attached to a belt, so you can carry that on its own and it's always attached to you. This is a parang, so this is the kind of locally made machete. These are made out of leaf springs off vehicles over in places like Malaysia, Brunei, Borneo, places like that. And this is the one that I bought when I was on my jungle warfare instructor course in 1997. You still see it's going strong. Fairly lightweight and a nicely shaped blade on that. So that's just another version of a machete. A couple of slightly different things going away from knives then. Navigation, as I've mentioned, is really tough in the jungle, okay? And one of the things you need to do is use a pacer for actually accurately measuring how far you've gone. So you use bearings and pacings, and that way you can always track where you're going at all times. And I have covered this in a previous video. I'll put the link onto that here. Last thing I've got here then is a loop line and carabiner. Now this is primarily used in the jungle for putting safety lines across fast flowing rivers, and you can use the carabiner to kind of rig it up at either end or to attach to you to a safety harness to actually go along the line going through the jungle. And again, I have covered this in a previous video. Right then, so that's just a quick run through of all the kit and equipment that you can use in a jungle environment, in a tropical environment. You'll notice a lot of that stuff there was military orientated or military coloured. That's because most of that kit is stuff that I've used in the jungle, or all of it actually. It doesn't have to be those green or camouflage colours, okay? But those certain principles there that we talked about, the considerations, things like your water, your care of your body, those different tools that are essential, they're the same for military or civilian use. So let me know what you thought. Anybody that's worked in a jungle environment before, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know if you've done anything differently or you used different bits of kit that worked effectively. Have a little discussion about it. I'm interested to see what you got to say. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and we'll be seeing you again soon. Stay prepared.